to go there inshallah ta'ala, no problem. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa ba'd. So, for the few sessions that we have left before the holy month of Ramadan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the blessing of reaching it inshallah. I'm going to conclude or try to the best of my ability to complete the piece of accepting mortality, which is the second piece, which is accountability. They come hand in hand. A part of accepting mortality is accepting that which comes after it, that's attached to it. And just like mortality is crucial and critical for us to be able to enjoy life and appreciate time and appreciate our lives, accountability is critical for us to be able to have morality in our lives. So without mortality, you lose the ability to live in the now, to appreciate what you have, to see the beauty that exists within the blessings and offerings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you in life. It's the only way for you to value your time and the time that you have with the people whom you love. That's what mortality grants you. Knowing that it's going to end makes it beautiful. It wasn't built to last. It's not supposed to last. And there's no beauty in it lasting. And sometimes we get really caught up on that, by the way. Even in our Islamic institutions, I listen to people talk. You have to build it to last, build it to last. Even here, build it to last. La ya akhi, I'm building it for now, until I die. And then after that, I don't really care, because it's not my problem anymore. So I'm not building it to last. I'm building it just to, why am I thinking about 50 years ahead when I can't fix the problems of now? It actually poses a little bit of a problem, like a psychological problem, that I am thinking about fixing problems that are stretch into the far future of decades and go across the ummah, when I can't even just solve basic issues that are happening right here, right now with the people around me. It's insane. Just fix what you have, ya akhi. Forget about nothing is built to last. Your body isn't, your soul isn't, nothing is built to last. So just take care of what you can. Do what you can now. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't plan for and have insight and a long-term vision. I'm not talking about that. Of course you should have these things, but sometimes it's emphasized beyond what it's designed to be emphasized, and you forget the importance of just take care of what you have right now. Sometimes thinking big is a way to run away from, is actually a method of you escaping the need to think about what you have in front of you. So mortality is very much needed for us to beautify the life that we live, to see the jamal that exists in everything around us, and enjoy the now, and enjoy the people around us, and see the value of the time that we have, because it's so finite and it's so fragile and limited. But without accountability, you cannot build morality in that either. Just like you need mortality to see the beauty in things, you need accountability in order for you to argue morality. You can conclude morality, but you can't really argue why you should stick to it. You can conclude morality in this world on your own. If you're thrown on an island somewhere alone, and you spend 20 years against your will having to think about things, there's nothing else to do, you will conclude morality. You'll conclude the importance of being honest and having a proper work ethic, and being professional, and being kind, and being empathetic, and being loyal, and being all the good stuff. You conclude them, but you can't argue why you should stick to them, and why it's important, and why we should all do it, when everything around you is ruled by the law of the jungle. Everything around you is ruled that way. And mortality sometimes even helps that argument. You're only here for such a short period of time. If you were dealt a hand or you're on top, you better hold on to it. Like if your luck of the draw gave you like an advantage over everyone, it does. Keep yourself on top, because this was it's only one lifetime, and it's 1 in a million that you got this upper hand, so take it. So mortality actually argues against morality sometimes, like against ethicality. And these are all very well established philosophical arguments historically, and it's not something that, I'm not bringing anything new to the table really by saying this. I'm just saying that this is what mortality does. It helps you see the beauty in every moment if you use it properly, but it can also argue against just being good. Accountability is what allows us to appreciate that. It's critical for that part of the equation. You need it in order for you to argue why virtuosity and ethicality and morality are important things. As final pieces regarding mortality, because I went over what we didn't talk about, and I felt kind of bad about a bunch of things that we didn't really talk about. So I have 2 points I'm going to share with you that I think I'll feel more comfortable moving on from mortality, just knowing that I've shared them with you, something to think about. There's a need that we have to be remembered. There's a need that we carry that we want to be remembered, and that sometimes can make the fear of mortality a bit worse than it should be. If you take all the right steps through the lessons that I shared with you, you will come to a point, inshallah, where mortality is not as much of a beast as it was before, where you're focused on husn al-khatima, on making sure that the ending is good. All you want is just to be standing towards doing that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased by when the time comes. That's all, that becomes your obsession. You're not scared of nothingness. You know that there's a transition. You know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafoor Rahim, and you're trying your best, so you have good hope and you have good run and good assumptions in Allah that He will take care of you. You're still, to a certain degree, fearful of your mistakes and sins tanking you, but you have a lot of hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, and you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want, so you have that hope inshallah in Him, and you're not really scared of disappearing, you're just scared of just punishment. So you can come to that point where the fear of mortality changes in its nature and becomes more focused on motivation and moving you forward, and it becomes a weapon that you use to hold your nafs accountable and keep it quiet and be able to make the important choices and the decisions that you want to make in your life. What makes it easier is getting your affairs in order, writing your wasiyah, making sure that the people that you leave behind are taken care of, that you've spent enough time with them, that you've made amends with everyone around you, that you didn't walk out of this world and you wish you had said this to your mom, or you wish you had done that with your dad, or you wish that you had fixed this problem with your sibling. You've done all that so that you have no regrets when it comes to big parts of your life that are important to you. But another piece of it is that fear of not being remembered, of being forgotten over time. You have to be okay with this. This is something that you have to come to because it's going to hurt the people behind you. The people that you leave behind, if they felt that you wanted that and that you are scared that people are going to forget you, then they become guilty. They feel guilty about it. They feel guilty of you being forgotten. So they exaggerate remembering you. And you see this all the time, where it's just like they keep on bringing up this in a way that's actually harming them. And of course, like all these bid'ah came where we have to engage in the 40 days, and then in the 6 months, and then in the year. You can't give the tariqah, you can't give the inheritance away until after a year of death. And all of this garbage that's not a part of Islam. 3 days, you get 3 days. You can mourn someone for 3 days Islamically, and then you move on. The hole that leaves in your heart when you lose a loved one will never go away. It's always there. But you're allowed Islamically to really grieve and mourn for 3 days, and you move on. And then khalas, you can't show huzn physically. You shouldn't be dressed in black and showing huzn. No. Now you build on. You move on with your life. If you want to keep the legacy going by a good deed or by an act of sadaqah, then alhamdulillah, that's a great thing. Otherwise you have to move on. So the idea of wanting to be remembered, no, you shouldn't care about that. Remembered or not, what you care about is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remembers you, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you going to Him. Whether people remember me after I leave or not should not be of any importance to me. Whether they know who I am, whether I left, it should not be something of interest. It is something of interest for us as human beings, but you have to learn and you have to take time to really think about this. I'm not going to detail this talk specifically. I'm just sharing it with you as something for you to contemplate, as a part of understanding mortality. You have to rid yourself of needing, I'm not going to take a question on it, needing to be remembered, because it is a part of the human experience. The second piece I want to talk about is, and this is the last thing I'll share about mortality. Remember, in addition to all the points that I've made for you regarding accepting mortality and understanding your own death and the finite nature of this time that we spend here on earth, is that whenever you leave, like whenever it's your time to move on, that is Allah's decree of the time that He had given you. Nothing is going to change. لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ أَجَلٍ حتى إذا جاء أحدهم قال رب ارجعون قال كلا. No, you don't come back. ولن يؤخر الله نفسا إذا جاء أجلها. Once the time is up, His time is up. He decreed for you a number of breaths. From the day you were born, there's only a certain number of breaths you were ever going to take. You were never going to take more nor less. You're going to take them to the extent of what they are. So when the time comes, there's nothing to be sad about. You're not missing out on anything because there was really nothing else to miss out. This was it. This was what was decreed by the Haqq subhanahu wa ta'ala. You used it all up, and now that's it. There's nothing else so people get murdered, people die from mistakes, people still, after all that is seen and understood, this was the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed, knew within His ilm and had decreed for you to have, and you had it, and now you've moved on. So remember that your mortality is not something that, if you get caught up on it, meaning if you get obsessed by this fact that I could have lived more, I could have done more, it ruins things. And if you get obsessed of the same idea regarding other people, it can really ruin your experience of life. وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. That when the time comes, the time comes. لَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ سَاعَةً وَلَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ. You don't leave early, you don't leave late, you leave at the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for you to leave. So leave. There's no regrets here. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing missing. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ رُوحَ الْقُدُسِ نَفَثَ فِي رَوْعِي أَنَّ نَفْسًا لَن تَمُوتَ حَتَّى تَسْتَكْمِلَ أَجَلَهَا. That Jibreel came once and he blew into my consciousness. That's what he says. Like he didn't tell this to me. He did something bigger. He blew it into my consciousness so I could embrace it and completely accept it. That no nafs will die before its time. حتى تستكمل أجلها, until it's used up the time that it has, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for it. This is an important understanding that you as a Muslim have to kind of comprehend and wrap your head around and spend some time contemplating. It'll help with the mortality process. And I'm just sharing these 2 points. They are points that take a bit of time, obviously, but I want you to take some time and think about them. Now, moving on to the part of accountability. This is very different from self-accountability, which is what I talked about at the beginning of this series a number of months ago. So if you go back to the beginning of it, I talked about self-honesty and self-accountability. That's you holding yourself accountable in this life, as in you are going over your mistakes and the things that you've done and the good things that you've done and questioning the morality behind it, questioning the intention, questioning the validity, questioning the benefit that it was bringing to people, and why you did it and the quality of it. That's something that we all have to perform. This accountability is different. This is not self-accountability. This is the accountability in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we don't like it. The bottom line is, the nafs does not like this idea that you're going to be judged. We don't like to be judged in general. We find it quite offensive. We only accept it because we have no choice. The only time you would accept a judgment is when you're in a court of law and you're in cuffs and there's big people with guns. So you have no choice. You have to hope that the judge gives you good judgment. But outside of that, you are not interested in people's judgment. Once you hit a certain age, you're actually very offended. And you start thinking, who are you to judge me to begin with? Based on what are you judging me? Right? It's a part of the nafs where you don't really accept people's judgment. You're quick to judge others. It's a part of our psychological build where we're very quick. Actually, it happens naturally. You don't have to put any effort into it. Like there's no effort needed. The effort that is going to be put in is actually to stop it. It happens automatically. The moment someone walks in, you judge them. It's a quick screen and you've already decided if they're good or bad, worthy of your friendship, and better than you or less than you. You decide immediately. So we're good with that. We don't like to be judged though. So we imagine that people don't do it to us, even though they always do. And we get offended if we find it out. The concept that you're going to be held accountable by the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala is a scary one. And it's one that the nafs does not enjoy, does not like. Because it doesn't like to be judged. But if you remove that part from the equation, from any equation, any moral or ethical equation, or you remove it from Islam, no Islamic argument can hold its merit any longer. Like nothing works. I can't convince you of anything or explain anything to you or tell you that you should do this or shouldn't do that if you remove the concept of ba'th, yawm al-qiyamah. I'm using the word accountability. The Quran focuses on yawm al-qiyamah or qiyam al-sa'ah or al-ba'th wal-nushur, all these words, the resurrection, coming back from the dead, the day of judgment. All of these words, they just refer to the same idea. I'm just taking all these words with all the verses that talk about them and just focus on this one concept that's attached to it, which is you're going to be held accountable. What you did was recorded, and you're going to be held accountable. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, and I shared with you last week a few hadith about death, and every week I'll share with you a few more that kind of talk about this. Hadith Ibn Hibban fi Sahihih, where the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Hurairah tells us that the Prophet ﷺ said, قال إذا وضع العبد في التراب سمع قرع نعال الدافنين إذا انفضوا عنه. That once the person is put in the ground, he hears people walking away from him. Like you hear people leave. You hear it, that they're gone. No one's there with you anymore. So that feeling of wahsha, of being alone, sets in, where you are truly alone. No one's there. Yani, she was with me all my life, every moment, and she's not anymore. Yani, I know that my mom loves me more than me, she's not there. My children that I raised left. No one's going to sit around the qabr for more than an hour. They're going to leave. And they shouldn't. Even Islamically, you shouldn't. You have to, you do from the dafn, you make the dua, and then you leave. You don't sit there all day long. You can come every once in a while and make dua for them, but that's it. This person is left now, alone. That loneliness is important, and understanding it, because if you understand it, then you can prepare for what it looks like. Because you don't have to be alone. Like you don't have, that loneliness doesn't have to be the case. فقال عليه الصلاة والسلام فيسمع قرع نعال إذا انفضوا عنه قال ثم تأتي الصلاة فتجلس عند رأسه ويجلس الصيام عن يمينه والزكاة عن شماله وفعل الخيرات من صلة وإحسان ومعروف عند قدميه. And then the salah will come, in your salah is manifested in something that you are able to physically see, or something that you are capable of communicating with or observing, and it comes in and sits right behind you, right where your head is. And your siyam will come and sit on your right, and your zakah will sit on your left, and then all of the good deeds of strengthening the ties of kin and ma'ruf, serving people, will go sit at your feet. قال فيأتيه العذاب, and the punishment of the barzakh will come to him. فيأتيه من قبل رأسه, and it comes from his head, at his head at first. فتقول الصلاة ما قبلي مدخل, and Salah says there's no entrance from here. قال فتأتي العذاب عن يمينه, and it comes from his right. يقول الصيام ما قبلي مدخل, his siyam will say no, there's no entrance from here. فيأتي العذاب عن شماله, it comes from his left. فتقول الزكاة ما قبلي مدخل, and zakah says no, there's no entrance from here. فيأتي العذاب من عند قدميه, and it comes from his feet. فتقول فعل الخيرات ما قبلي مدخل. There's no entrance, and they protect you, and they protect you in your grave. But the accountability for mistakes begins immediately. It begins immediately once we leave this world, because this whole life that we're living is just opportunities for you to make choices. Here, choices. Make a choice. What you want to do. Okay, go ahead. Next one. Here's a bunch of choices. What you want to do. This decision, khalas, go ahead. Next one. You're just making choices. Keep on making choices. It's not unlimited number of choices. There are a lot of them, but it's not unlimited. You can't choose to fly or choose to. You have a certain number of choices that you're going to make. But every moment that you're alive right now, you're just making a choice of what you want to do next. All right, put it in his book. This is his choice. Put it there. All add it up. The sum is there. You pass away. Now there's no more there's no opportunities. Once the spirit leaves the body, khalas, there's no more, you're not offered an opportunity to change something. Last words were done. Even the last words that happen as the ruh is leaving don't always count. Sometimes if it's too advanced, the last words may not even count. Fir'aun, as he was, حَتَّى إِذَا أَدْرَكَهُ الْغَرَقُ, just as he was about to finally fully drown, he was going to die. قال آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل وأنا من المسلمين. الآن, the ayah says, now. الآن, now. وقد عصيت قبل وكنت من المفسدين. You spent your whole life in denial and sin and in corruption. فاليوم ننجيك ببدنك. Today we will save you with your body only. لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً, so that you can continue to be a point of reflection for the people who come after you. You know there are Muslim scholars who believe that Fir'aun will make it Yawm al-Qiyamah. There are Muslim scholars who said, he said, لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل. The ta'zeem of La ilaha illallah in our deen. Some Muslim scholars, he said it, khalas, we think that he may make it Yawm al-Qiyamah. The Quran is quite clear in its wording, but they can't help it. But because the moment your spirit's out, khalas, there's no point anymore in giving you chances to do this or opportunities to do that, because it's not going to count. No one's keeping track. It's a very difficult feeling once you figure it out, which is why I'm trying to get you to figure it out now. If you figure it out then, that everything you were doing before was counting, was adding up, It was going in a direction that was going to benefit you. And now the books are closed, and you can sit there doing tasbih and tahleel, and the malak who's responsible just sits there doing nothing. And you're like, La ilaha illallah, nothing. He's not going to write anything. Khalas, the book is closed, the pen is taken away, it's sealed. It's sealed, only to be open again on the Day of Judgment. So you can read back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That realization is very painful. It's very, very painful that you cannot control your fate anymore. That you can't control your fate anymore. That your fate now has been... So this whole, people who waste time coming to argue, qada and qadar and do history. Well, I feel such a waste of breath. I'm at a point in my life where I can't do it anymore. Yes, you control your fate now. If you just stop, you do. But when you die, you don't. And that's going to hurt you a lot. Of course, you do. Everything you do right now is dictating where you're going to be, Yawm al-Qiyamah. Every decision you make right now is changing your fate on the Day of Judgment. Everything. So make good choices so that fate keeps on getting better. So you keep on improving it. Because once you're gone, once you're dead, that piece is going to burn. It's going to sting. Because you can't change anything. And you really want to. Like there's nothing that you want more at the moment of death than to change your fate. That's why the first thing, you go through the verses of the Quran, every time it's the same thing. قَالَ رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ. Just let me go back. Let me go back. لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِي مَا تَرَكْتُ. I'll do well. خلاص, we figured it out. وَتَرَى إِذِ الْمُجْرِمُونَ نَاكِسُوا رُؤُوسِهِمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. If you see the criminal, if only you could see the criminals or the deviants on the Day of Judgment with their heads held down. رَبَّنَا أَبْصَرْنَا وَسَمِعْنَا. Oh our Lord, we have now full insight. We see everything, we hear it all, we understand it all. Now it makes perfect sense to us. We have no more questions or mockery or doubts. It's clear. أَبْصَرْنَا وَسَمِعْنَا فَارْجِعْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا. Send us back, we will do this perfectly. إِنَّا مُوقِنُونَ. We have full certainty. فَذُوقُوا بِمَا نَسِيتُمْ لِقَاءَ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا إِنَّا نَسِينَاكُمْ. Taste the punishment that is coming your way. You have been forgotten today, just like you forgot all your lives. وَذُوقُوا عَذَابَ الْخُلْدِ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. So when you think about accountability يوم القيامة, the first thing that has to come to mind is the fact that what really happens is that you lose your ability. So that's what is problematic for us with death, with mortality, is that that's where the book gets closed. And now you're going to be around for a long time. You'll be around for a long time, and you cannot control your fate anymore. Now you're a sitting duck. It's just whatever you've done before, and if you get lucky. If somehow there's something works out for you, but you can't make a difference yourself. You can't stand out and go ahead and pop your head up and hope that someone notices you. And no, khalas. All that was something that was supposed to be done before. Understanding it this way, the reason that I'm sharing this with you, helps you take your focus from worrying about the moment where you leave this world and die to focusing on everything else that you should be worried about, which is whether you're making the right choices, whether you're doing the right thing, and whether you can do a bit more. And then the worry about death changes completely from that crippling fear of just that is filled with sadness to the point where I just want to make sure I end on a good note, that I'm doing everything I can to make sure that my fate is sealed in a good way. Because once I leave this world, I have no choice anymore. It is well established from a philosophical standpoint that to convince the human race of the importance of morality, you require some form of reward and punishment system, which is why we have laws. The reason that we have laws is because it's hard to convince people to do the right thing without some form of a reward and punishment system. Governments gave up or aren't interested in rewards. They never have been. So rewards don't really exist for you. You could spend all of your life serving selflessly the people and your country, and if you make one mistake, they will absolutely destroy you. The governments have no interest in reward. Their interest lies in punishment. Right? And it works. It still works. To a certain degree, it works. One of the reasons that we don't eat each other is because there are laws. The only way you can govern the roads is you need laws. The only way you can make sure that people don't harm one another and steal from one another and break into each other's homes and shoot each other is because you have laws that dictate it. We figured this out a long time ago. It didn't happen right away. For a long time, we were nomads as human beings. We just roamed the earth with no laws. And the only way that you could survive is if you had a strong group to protect you, which puts you under the mercy of that group, which again put another law, because now in order for you to be protected from the savagery around you, you have to stay within this group. And to stay within this group, you have to listen to what's being told, and what's being told are laws, and you don't like them. And these laws may not be fair, and they may not be just, and they may not be appropriate. Over time, the human race kind of figured out other ways to do this, where we don't have to be living under persecution and oppression in order for us to be safe and in order for us not to be. We've tried not to have laws many times historically. Not once did it work. And every time you remove the governance of law, the place turns into an absolute hell on earth. And the crimes that occur towards the weak, the children and the women and the elderly and the sick and the smaller groups and the minorities is something that it'll send a shiver up your spine once you read it. And you can only read so much of these stories before you have to stop reading them, because they start causing a little bit of difficulty to any hope in humanity. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He sends religions, the word deen in Islam doesn't mean religion, or in Arabic. The word deen means law. The word deen means law. What is it that you owe? What you're going to be held accountable for? It's a law. And that's what the prophets bring. They bring laws. Laws for the living, but also laws that will not be enforced in this life, but they will be enforced later. Laws that may not be enforced now, but they will be enforced later. And we know again, there's another thing that we know. I'm talking about what we know as human beings, regardless of religion or faith or anything else. We know that no matter how strict and powerful laws are, and no matter how good and efficient the enforcers of those laws are, that if the people themselves do not agree with those laws and hold themselves accountable to those laws, they won't work. We know that as well. If people don't agree with the law, it was illegal to smoke cannabis for the longest time. What happened? They gave up. Halas, legal. Halas, legal, so we can tax you for it at least. Because there's no point. It's illegal, but people don't believe it. They don't accept it. They're going to keep on doing it. There's no way. You can't stop it. Which is the problem with man-made laws, is that they will follow the heavy movement of the collective. If the collective moves in one direction, where the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are designed to actually stop the movement, to protect human beings from their own wrongdoing, from their own bad desires. Law is what allows for morality to exist. The laws of the Quran, meaning what is correct and what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil, is what we hold ourselves to. If you don't have that, then we will make up our own. We will make up our own laws, and they'll be whatever the stronger one believes. Bring someone to an argument, bring someone to a discussion who doesn't believe in accountability, doesn't believe that after they die, anyone's going to ask them any questions at all. It's hard to convince them to do right things. It's hard to convince them that they should not do 1, 2, and 3, and you have to do 4, 5, and 6. It's hard. It's almost impossible. If they have the lower hand in life, like if they are in need, if they are poor, if they were dealt a difficult hand, then there's no way. There's almost no way to do it. The only way that someone who has a disadvantage, the only way someone who's disadvantaged will follow any form of morality and hold themselves accountable to ethics is if they believe that they're going to be held accountable to it later. And anything else, any other claim is wishful thinking. And atheists will often make this argument. It's just something to kind of know. They'll make this argument that, no, we can come up with morality. Yes, we can come up with morality. For sure we can. We can't enforce it, though. And it's impossible to follow. And to say that, no, the human beings have the ability to have a disadvantage and still hold themselves to a higher ethical standard, right? Now, without akhirah, without there being some form of accountability later, has been proven to be false 100 times. It's wishful thinking. It's a utopia. It's an idealist view of the human experience. It's not. It's never happened, really. Which takes you back to think about the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and all the prophets before him, their life experiences. I want you to see it through that lens. These are people who were disadvantaged. They were mistreated. They were poor. They were enslaved. They were persecuted and tortured and called names. and yet they held themselves to an ethical standard. Why would they hold themselves to an ethical standard? What do you have? The most dangerous person in the world who has nothing to lose. Someone who has nothing to lose, you have to be afraid of that person because they can do anything. Yeah, sometimes people, like morality is built sometimes out of fear of losing things. Like, no, how about we don't steal because I have a lot of gold. I don't want this. This works in my behavior. This is not kill. I'm not very strong. I don't have a lot of people. Maybe don't kill each other. So it becomes a law of convenience rather than a law of morality, right? So someone who has nothing to lose, someone who has no wealth, who has no structure, has no support, has no. How do you convince someone like that they should follow a law or hold themselves to a higher ethical standard? In Arabia, it didn't exist. That's why you only moved in groups as tribes to protect each other. Because the poor, the moment they find you astray, they will dismantle you as a person. They will pull the teeth from your mouth and sell them. Like you're just protein with clothing and things they can benefit from because they have nothing to lose. When you think about the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba from that perspective, that these are people who held themselves to a higher ethical standard even though they were disadvantaged for a very long time. What holds people to that? There's only one thing. There's only one thing that allows for that to occur, which is a belief or a certainty in accountability that will come later. The fearfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable, will question you. Which brings me to the final piece that I want to share with you for today. Again, these are heavy points and you have to take some time and think about them. You have to contemplate this stuff if you're going to benefit from it. Do you truly believe in accountability? Or is it just something that you've accepted over the years and that's how you grew up? You have to question yourself on this one clearly. The Quran, when it came and spoke to the Arab, the Mushrikeen in Arabia, there were two problems, and two problems only. Because the Arab all believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the name, and believed in the status of the creator of the heavens. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ خَلَقَ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ. They'll use the same term in describing God. Their first problem was shirk, was associating someone else with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a different topic that we will talk about inshallah in the near future. Associating someone, seeing someone to be equal to God. That's number one. The second one was just ba'th. That's why the question was always, أَإِذَا مِتْنَا. How many times in the Quran? أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَبْعُوثُونَ خَلْقًا جَدِيدًا. What are you, insane? Like once I'm dead and I turn to nothing into the ground and my body disappears into the earth, I'm going to come back again? حِلْ عَنِّي أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. Don't give me this. Their problem was not with God. He said, no, it's one life. You die, you're done. So for them, it's like morality is more of a suggestion. It's more of like a recommendation. Try to be nice to the best of your ability. But if you lose your temper, it's okay. Try to be just, but if it's really desirable, then it's all right. Like morality is not absolute. There's no absoluteness in morality because there's just nothing. What's the big deal? So the Arab, in order to hold on to any form of law in their land, because they didn't believe that they're going to come back, there's no accountability, they had to depend on something else. So what did they depend on? They depend on reputation. They worshipped reputation. They built something for themselves. They built a system for themselves to encourage good ethics without morality, and it became sum'ah. It became that when I die, I want people to say this about me. Hatim al-Ta'i, one of the most generous person we've ever, like the stories are almost borderline mythical. Like the stories don't make any sense. You read the story like that's impossible, but then you read it from 4 or 5 sources like, oh well, that's okay, maybe. But why did he do all this stuff? Why would he behave this way? Why would he slaughter all of his camels in one night to feed? Why would he do this? Because he wanted to be remembered as a Kareem, as someone who was. That's all he wanted. He became obsessed with how he was going to be remembered after he died. It was the only way that. So Arabs that's what they pushed, is that what are you going to be known by? I can't be called this, I can't be called that. It all became socially driven. Like the shame that comes from not being called what you want to be called. It doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work very much anyways in the long run. So they didn't have, the Quran was arguing with them, these two things. زَعَمَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَلَّنْ يُبْعَثُوا. They've made the claim that they will not be resurrected. قُلْ بَلَى وَرَبِّي لَتُبْعَثُنْ. Say, no, indeed you will. I swear to you, by the Lord, that there's like four emphasizing factors in this ayah. لَتُبْعَثُنَّ ثُمَّ لَتُنَبَّؤُنَّ, and then you'll be explained and told بِمَا عَمِلْتُمْ, that which you have done. It'll all be opened up to you. وَذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. This is easy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of the arguments of the Quran, in the Quran, are making towards why is this such a difficult topic for you? Why are you struggling with accepting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring you back? وَالَّذِي يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ وَهُوَ أَهْوَنُ عَلَيْهِ. He's the one who began creation, and He will repeat it again. And it's easier to repeat an action than to do it for the first time. Like even in your own logical thought process, doing something the second time is easier than doing it the first time. You have a little bit more experience the second time. So even in your own laws and your own logic, you shouldn't be having it. It shouldn't be so difficult for you to understand that you'll be brought back again. But they just kept on arguing this. The refusal was ba'ath. Because once you accept accountability, it changes everything. It changes everything. I emphasize this term, this phrase. It changes everything for you. Which is why I'm asking you, do you truly believe? Because I can tell you this much. The majority of people don't really believe. If they did, we wouldn't be where we are right now. It's impossible. If there were 2 billion people on earth who believed with certainty that they're going to be held accountable and resurrected and held accountable for what they did, we wouldn't be here. This wouldn't be our problems today would not be our problems. But most people, they act like they believe it to a certain degree. And maybe they draw pictures around it. That, but I'll be fine. Like I'm going to make my way through easily. If you truly believe that your actions are going to be recited back to you, you're going to have to recite them yourself and explain them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then your whole mindset changes. Because all you're thinking about is, can I defend this later? Would I want to talk about this Yawm al-Qiyamah? Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib would sob, and he would say, أَلَا إِنَّ أُنَاسًا لَا يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَتَتَسَاقَطُ لُحُومُ وُجُوهِهِمْ خَجَلًا مِّن رَبِّهِمْ إِذْ يَتْلُونَ عَلَيْهِ أَفْعَالَهُم يُشِيرُ إِلَى نَفْسِهِ. So Ali ibn Abi Talib would sob, and he would refer to himself, obviously. This is his tazkiyah, and this is how he said, indeed, people on the Day of Judgment will be resurrected on the Day of Judgment, and their faces will fall off their bone in embarrassment when they have to recite back to God what they have done in their lives. And he was referring to himself, radiyallahu anhu wa ardahu wa karramallahu wajhah, the great scholar, Sayyidina Ali. But this is how they felt about this stuff. This is how they saw the future. That I'm going to be held accountable. How am I going to be held accountable? So the question that you have to ask yourself is, do you truly accept this fact? Not only will that affect your choices and your decisions, because now the focus is absolutely on what is my book going to have in it, and how am I going to explain it, but it makes mortality much easier. It would be easier actually to start with this, but I don't for a reason. Because it makes mortality easier. Because mortality is no longer a problem, really. The problem is not dying. Dying it's what happens next, and how do I hold my... You forget about this piece. Dying is not a problem anymore. Dying is inevitable. It's going to happen. I don't care. It's how am I going to argue all of this? How am I going to explain myself? How do I explain what's in my book? What exactly is there in it that is worth Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah upon me? And have I done enough? So the focus all becomes on that, which motivates people heavily and forces them to make sure that their choices and decisions are aligned with this certain belief that they carry. That's why the yaqeen in al-ba'ath wal nushur yawm al-qiyamah is an absolute necessity. Is an absolute necessity, and you cannot really be, wallahu alam, a Muslim without it. It's not, you're not, people, if you don't believe in ba'ath and nushur, you're not Muslim. That's what the Quran came and argued with the mushrikeen. La ilaha illallah wa tub'athuna yawm al-qiyamah. You remove one of those two, khalas, you're now amongst the jahiliyyah people. That's as simple as that. The problem today is that there are a lot of claims of belief of these two things, but there's lack of truth of belief in these two things. And I'm challenging you today, and I'm going to ask you to challenge yourself. Do you truly accept Ba'ath Yawm al-Qiyamah? Or do you see something different? Or do you see? And if you truly accept Ba'ath Yawm al-Qiyamah, then there's no point of sitting around and feeling hopeless and feeling helpless and feeling useless. If you're going to be held accountable Yawm al-Qiyamah and you're still alive, then get your act together and make sure that you're going to do well, because you still control your fate. because it's in your hands. He rigged it in your favor, subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no ill intention in this whole story where you are, Allah subhanahu wants to punish you. No. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. What Allah subhanahu is going to do with the punishment if you all show gratitude and you have iman? He'll get rid of all of it. There's no need for it. So there's no point of sitting there feeling crippled by it, but rather use that understanding, that clarity, the contemplation of this fact to motivate you to take your life by the horns and move it forward in the way that you see accountable. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue next week. Subhanallahi bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka wa 'azzam ala